He always liked telling stories, but there was one he hesitated to share for years. And honestly, when I first heard it from him, it reminded me of something strange that happened to me once, the day I found an old photograph of my grandmother standing beside a woman who looked exactly like someone I had met in my teens. I remember holding that picture and feeling this sudden rush of cold in my chest, like time had folded in on itself. Maybe that's why his story stuck with me so deeply. Maybe that's why I can't tell it without feeling that same chill down my spine. He wasn't the type of person you'd expect to get caught up in something mysterious, not at all. His name was Daniel, a quiet guy who preferred routines over surprises, stability over chaos. The kind of man who bought the same brand of cereal for 10 years and parked in the exact same spot at work every single morning. Friends said he lived like he was afraid anything unexpected might break him. But maybe that's exactly why the unexpected found him. Daniel lived alone in a small apartment on the edge of town, an old place with thin walls and creaky floors, the kind of building where people rarely moved in or out. He'd grown used to silence, the hum of his refrigerator, the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog, the distant sound of trains passing at night. He didn't mind being alone. He didn't crave attention. What he craved, secretly, was connection, the real kind. The kind he had never quite found. He spent most nights scrolling through his phone, not really looking for anything. Just passing time. That's when he found her. Or maybe it's more accurate to say she found him. Her name was Lena. Her profile wasn't flashy, no exaggerated poses, no filtered photos that made her look unreal. Just a simple smile, soft brown eyes, and a caption beneath her picture that read, "Looking for something honest." Those words hooked him instantly, because that was what he wanted too, even if he rarely admitted it. He messaged her after 3 days of hesitation. He told me he rewrote the first sentence 10 times, then deleted everything and simply wrote, "Hi, I'm Daniel." She replied an hour later. They talked for days, non-stop, as if they had been waiting for each other without realizing it. Something about her eased his nerves in a way no one else ever had. Something about her felt inevitable. Their first date was simple. A quiet cafe near the river. He told me he arrived early, way too early, because he didn't want to risk being late. He sat at a small table near the window, tapping his fingers against the cup he hadn't touched yet, watching the door every few seconds. Then she walked in. He said he knew it was her before she even looked at him. She moved with this strange calmness, like she didn't belong to the frantic rhythm of the world around her. She wore a pale blue dress and carried a small book in her hand, as if she had been reading on the way. When she spotted him, she smiled, not the forced kind people give on awkward first dates, but something warm, almost familiar. And the weirdest part? He felt like he had seen her before. Not in photos. Not online. Somewhere else. It bothered him for a moment, but he brushed it aside. People say that sometimes connections feel like déjà vu. Maybe that was all it was. Their conversation flowed easily, almost too easily. He wasn't usually talkative, but with her, he found himself telling stories he hadn't shared in years, memories from childhood, fears he kept hidden, dreams he had forgotten he used to have. She listened closely, never interrupting, always leaning forward slightly, as if every word mattered. And when she spoke, her voice had this softness that made everything sound meaningful. They stayed there for nearly 3 hours. When they finally stood to leave, he offered to walk her home. She hesitated, smiling politely, and said, "Maybe another time." He didn't push. They exchanged a hug, a long one, the kind you feel in your chest afterward, and she promised she'd text him that night. But she didn't. He waited until midnight, staring at his phone. No message. He sent one instead, "I had a great time. Hope you got home safe." No reply. The next morning, he checked again. Nothing. He opened the app where they had met, her profile was gone. Not blocked. Not inactive. Gone, like it had never existed. He told me he felt a strange sinking feeling. Not heartbreak, confusion. A hollow confusion that crawled under his skin. People ghost each other all the time, but this felt different. Too sudden. Too complete. He searched her name online. Nothing. He checked public records, he actually went that far, but Lena didn't appear anywhere. Not with her face. Not with her details. Nothing. And that's when things started getting strange. He mentioned to his parents that he had gone on a date, something he rarely talked about, and his mother asked what the girl looked like. He described Lena, the brown eyes, the soft voice, the pale blue dress, the familiar warmth. As he spoke, his mother froze, the smile she had been wearing dropping slowly. His father looked up too, squinting slightly, like trying to recall something important. What was her name? His mother asked. Lena, he replied. A long silence. His mother forced a smile, nodded, and didn't ask anything else. But something in her expression unsettled him. It felt like she knew something, or recognized something, and was trying to hide it. Later that night, his father came to his room and closed the door behind him, something he never did. Daniel told me he had never seen that particular look on his father's face before. Not fear. Not anger. Something in between. Don't tell your mother more about her, his father said quietly. People from the past, sometimes they leave for a reason. That sentence wouldn't make sense to most people. But it terrified Daniel. Because he hadn't said anything about the past. He had only described a girl he met last night. Daniel asked what he meant by that. His father just shook his head and left the room. Days passed. No sign of Lena. He tried moving on, but every time he closed his eyes, he pictured that smile, those eyes, the way she looked at him like she already knew him. The sense of familiarity began to bother him more and more. He felt like he was missing something obvious, something right in front of him. And then his mother did something even stranger. One afternoon, while he was visiting them, she accidentally dropped a box of old family photos while cleaning the living room. Pictures scattered across the floor like a deck of memories. As he helped her gather them, a small album slipped from the box, one he had never seen before. It was older, thinner, covered in dust. Don't worry about that one, his mother said quickly, reaching for it. But he had already picked it up. He wasn't trying to pry, he simply opened it without thinking. And the moment he did, he felt his entire body go cold. The first page showed a photograph of his father as a teenager, standing near a lake. Nothing strange. The second page showed his grandmother holding a baby. Normal. But on the third page, there she was. Lena. Not someone who looked like her. Not a relative with similar features. It was her. The same smile. The same warm eyes. The same face. But the photo was dated 1987. He felt dizzy, staring at the picture, unable to believe what he was seeing. His breath caught in his throat. His mother snatched the album from his hands, closed it, and held it against her chest like it was something precious, or dangerous. Where did you see her? She whispered. She was my date, he replied, voice shaking. His mother shut her eyes tightly, like she was hoping the answer wasn't true. You weren't supposed to meet her, she murmured. His heart pounded. Who is she? His mother stood up slowly, walked to the bookshelf, and shoved the album behind a row of old dictionaries. Then she turned to him with eyes full of something he had never seen before, sorrow. Some people leave their mark on a family, she said quietly, and sometimes the past circles back in ways we don't understand. He pressed her again, harder this time. Who is she, Mom? She didn't answer. She simply walked out of the room. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the memory of the photograph, her face frozen in time 3 decades before she ever walked into that cafe. His thoughts spiraled until they made him physically sick. He knew he needed answers. And he knew his parents wouldn't give them. So he went searching on his own. He began with the old address written on the back of the photograph, something he had glimpsed before his mother snatched the album away. A street name and number, barely legible, faded by time. He wrote it down before leaving the house that night, pretending he hadn't seen a thing. The next morning, he drove to the address. It led him to a rural area far from the city, to a small wooden house that looked long abandoned. The windows were boarded up, and tall grass grew wild around the property. But the mailbox still carried the same family name he had read in the album. He thought about leaving. Everything inside him told him to turn around and forget the whole thing. But something stronger pushed him forward, a need for truth, or maybe closure. He walked around the house slowly, examining the peeling wood, the rusted hinges, the faint outlines of footprints in the dirt near the side door. And that's when he heard it, the soft creak of a floorboard inside. Someone was there. He froze. A moment later, a voice came from behind him. An elderly woman. Thin, pale, with eyes that seemed too sharp for her age. "You shouldn't be here," she said. He swallowed hard. "I'm looking for someone." She studied his face, and something in her expression changed. Recognition. Fear. Regret. "You look just like your father," she whispered. "He came here once too." Daniel felt his stomach twist. "Do you know her? The girl in the picture?" The woman inhaled shakily, as if preparing for something painful. "Yes," she said. "I knew her well. Everyone here did. But you shouldn't be chasing ghosts, boy. They never lead anywhere safe." Daniel felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. "Tell me who she is." The old woman looked at the house behind her, then back at him. "She was someone your family tried to protect," she said. "Someone who disappeared long before you were born. Someone who—" She stopped suddenly, as if realizing she had said too much. She shook her head. "No. No, I won't speak of her. Not after what happened." Daniel stepped closer. "Please. I just want to understand." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You don't understand because you're not supposed to. Some stories were meant to stay buried." And then she turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the overgrown yard, heart hammering, feeling like the ground beneath his feet had shifted. When he got back to his car, he checked his phone out of habit. There was a message. From an unknown number. Just 4 words. "Stop looking for me." Daniel stared at the screen, breath frozen. Because the message wasn't a threat. It wasn't angry. It sounded sad. And the name attached to the number. Lena. Sometimes when I tell this part of Daniel's story, people think I'm exaggerating. I get it, I'd think the same if someone told me something like this. But life has these moments where reality bends in ways that don't make sense, exactly like the time I got a midnight phone call from a number that belonged to someone who had passed away years earlier. It turned out to be a glitch in the carrier's system, but the feeling I had hearing that voicemail, it stuck with me. That's the same feeling Daniel described the moment he saw that message from Lena. A cold recognition. A chill in his bones. He didn't even open the message at first. He just stared at it, gripping his phone so tightly his fingers went numb. It wasn't possible. She shouldn't have been able to text him. She wasn't supposed to exist anymore, not in the present, not in any way that made sense. But 5 minutes later, he opened it. "Stop looking for me." That was all she had written. No explanation. No context. Like she was trying to protect him. Or warn him. Or keep him away from something he wasn't ready to face. He didn't reply. He couldn't. His thoughts were spiraling too fast. His heart felt like it was beating in the wrong place. The world around him seemed suddenly unstable, like the edges of reality had started to fray. He sat in his car for almost an hour before driving home, replaying every moment he had spent with her. How she moved. How she spoke. How she looked at him. Nothing in her behavior hinted that she was someone impossible. Someone out of time. Someone who shouldn't still be alive, if she ever had been, at least in the way he understood. When he finally got home, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across his living room. He dropped onto the couch and ran his hands over his face, trying to steady himself. He decided he needed answers, real ones, and the only place left to find them was in that old family album. His parents were keeping something from him. Something big. Something that terrified them. He waited until nearly midnight before driving back to their house. He still had the spare key his mother had given him years earlier. He let himself in quietly and headed straight for the living room shelves. The album wasn't there. He searched through every book, every drawer, every cabinet, his heart pounding louder than his footsteps. Nothing. It was like his mother had hidden it somewhere he'd never find. But Daniel was desperate. He checked the attic next. It was dusty, cramped, filled with boxes labeled with decades-old handwriting. He opened them one by one, shivering from the cold air trapped under the rafters. And then he found it. The old album, wrapped in a thin cloth, sitting inside a box labeled "Private." His hands trembled as he pulled it out. A part of him hesitated. He knew opening it would change everything, but the need to understand outweighed the fear. He sat on the floor and opened the album to the page where he'd seen Lena. There she was again. Only this time, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. In the corner of the photograph, partially hidden by the aging paper, was a handwritten note. "Don't let her in again." His breath caught. Again. Again implied she had been involved in something before. Something dangerous. Something that had affected his family deeply. He flipped through the pages quickly, searching for more pictures of her, but there weren't any. Just that one. Frozen in time. Staring back at him with a softness that now felt unsettling. He kept looking through the album until he reached the last page. There, tucked behind a loose strip of plastic, was a folded slip of paper. He unfolded it slowly. It was a letter. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting matched his grandmother's old notes he'd seen before. The letter was short, unfinished, as if she had started writing it and stopped suddenly. If he ever meets her. If she ever finds her way back. Tell him the truth before it's too late. Lena is not what she appears. She is bound to us, to our line. And she always returns. He stared at the words, feeling the ground shift beneath him. Always returns. What did that even mean? Before he could continue reading, he heard footsteps downstairs. He froze. Someone else was in the house. He quietly folded the letter and slipped it into his pocket, then closed the album and placed it back inside the box. The footsteps grew louder, climbing the stairs. "Daniel," his mother's voice called out, trembling. He exhaled in relief. "Mom. I needed to talk to you." She reached the attic doorway, her face pale and tired. Her eyes fell on the open boxes around him, and she covered her mouth with her hand. "You weren't supposed to find that," she whispered. "I need answers," he said, his voice cracking. "Who is she? Why is she in our family album? Why did Dad tell me not to talk about her? What happened to her?" His mother stepped into the attic slowly, like each step hurt. She sat down beside him, avoiding his eyes at first. "Your grandmother was the first to meet her," she said softly. "Decades ago. Before your father was born." Daniel waited, heart pounding. "She wasn't from here," his mother continued. "Not in the way you think. She appeared out of nowhere one summer evening, lost, confused, but calm. Like she already knew she'd arrive somehow. Your grandmother took her in. She stayed for months. She became part of the family." Too much apart. What do you mean? He asked. She had a connection with us, with our bloodline. She said she felt drawn to us, to our home. She said she had known us before she even arrived, but she couldn't explain how. And then one night, she disappeared. His mother's eyes filled with tears. And your grandmother found a note on her pillow the next morning. One sentence, "I'll come back when the time is right." Daniel felt a chill crawl across his skin. So she reappeared. Years later, his mother whispered. Exactly the same. Not older. Not changed. She was the same girl who had vanished years before. That's when your grandmother realized something was terribly wrong. Daniel swallowed hard. What was she? His mother shook her head slowly. We don't know. But every time she appears, she attaches herself to one of us. Your grandmother. Then your father. And now, you. His stomach twisted. Why me? Because she sensed something in you, his mother replied. The same way she sensed something in the others. It's like she follows a thread none of us can see. Daniel felt sick. So why did she show up on a dating app? He asked, struggling to process everything. His mother closed her eyes. Because it's easier now. Technology gives her more ways to find us. More ways to blend in. He shook his head. Blend in? Mom, she was real. She felt real. She is real, she whispered. Just not in the way you think. He stood up, pacing the attic. Why didn't you tell me? Why hide it? Because your father and I thought it would never happen again, she said. We hoped the pattern had broken. That she had finally moved on. But she didn't, Daniel replied, voice cracking. She went on a date with me. She hugged me. She looked at me like she remembered you, his mother interrupted. Because she did. Daniel froze. Remembered me from when? His mother hesitated. From before you were born. Those words knocked the breath out of him. He felt the attic spinning. The air felt too thin. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. Another message. From that same unknown number. He didn't want to look. But he did. I'm sorry. 2 words. 2 words that hurt more than anything else she could have said. His mother stood behind him, shaking. She's never contacted anyone this much before. Something is different this time. Daniel felt tears prick the corners of his eyes. I need to see her again. No, his mother said firmly, gripping his arm. That's exactly what she wants. And we don't know why. He pulled his arm away gently. Mom, I deserve answers. She owes me that. His mother's voice softened. And what if seeing her is what starts everything all over again? What if your grandmother was right to try to keep her away? What if she's tied to something we can't fix? He didn't respond. Because deep down, he already knew he was going to see Lena again, no matter the cost. That night, he sat awake in his apartment waiting for another message. Hours passed. Dawn crept through the blinds. Still nothing. By noon, exhaustion forced him to close his eyes. When he opened them again, he wasn't in his apartment. He was standing at the old rural house. The abandoned one. The one with boarded windows. He blinked, disoriented. The air felt heavy. Too quiet. Too still. He wasn't dreaming, he knew that instinctively. There, standing by the front door, was Lena. Her pale blue dress moved gently with the breeze. Her eyes were sad, unbearably sad, like she carried a lifetime of grief behind them. He wanted to speak, but his voice wouldn't come out. She approached him slowly. I told you not to look for me, she whispered. He finally managed to speak. Why are you here? What are you? She closed her eyes for a moment, collecting herself. "It doesn't matter what I am," she said. "All that matters is that you're the last one I wanted to hurt." "Hurt me?" he repeated. "You disappeared. You found me again. You've been part of my family for decades. You." "Because I don't belong anywhere," she said softly. "I move through places, through people, through time. I don't choose where I go. I don't choose who I'm connected to. I just appear. And when I leave, I take pieces with me, memories, feelings, years that don't feel like they belong to anyone afterward." Daniel stepped back, heart sinking. "Are you saying you drain people?" "No," she whispered. "Not on purpose. But being close to me, it changes people. It marks them. That's why your grandmother warned you. That's why your parents are afraid." He shook his head, refusing to accept it. "But why me? Why show up as my date?" A tear slid down her cheek. "Because when I reappeared this time, I remembered you. I remembered the way you looked at me, before you ever existed. And I thought, just once, maybe I could choose. Maybe I could have something real." She reached for his hand. He didn't move. "But when I saw how your mother reacted," she whispered, "I knew what would happen. I knew the pattern was still alive. I knew I wasn't meant to stay." Daniel's voice broke. "So what now?" She looked past him at the horizon, where the sun was beginning to set. "Now I go," she said. "Before I ruin you the way I've ruined the others." He stepped closer, shaking his head. "You didn't ruin me. You made me feel alive. You made me feel seen." She smiled, the same warm, familiar smile from the cafe. "I wish that were enough." A sudden gust of wind swept across the field. Her outline shimmered faintly. She was fading. "Lena," he shouted, reaching for her. She placed her hand against his cheek, light as air. "I'll remember you," she whispered. "Even if you forget me." And then she disappeared. Just like that. Leaving nothing behind but silence. Nothing but the hollow ache of something unfinished. Nothing but the ghost of a connection that should never have existed. Daniel fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the emptiness around him. He didn't know how long he stayed like that. Minutes. Maybe hours. Eventually, he stood up, wiped his face, and turned toward the road. But before leaving, he noticed something on the ground where she had been standing. A photograph. Weathered edges. Faded ink. He picked it up. It was the photograph from the old family album. But this time, something was different. In the corner that had once held the warning, there was now a new handwritten message. "Thank you for letting me be real." Daniel held it against his chest, eyes closed, tears streaming down his face. For the first time, he understood. She hadn't been a curse. She had been a story trying to be lived. A memory trying to exist out of time. A person trying to belong somewhere. And maybe, for one moment, she had. Sometimes, when I think about Daniel's story, I wonder how many people we meet who aren't meant to stay, people who drift into our lives from places we can't understand, people who change us in ways we only notice years later. Maybe Lena was never meant to be explained. Maybe she was just a reminder that some connections defy logic, stretching across time, memory, and the fragile borders of reality. Daniel kept that photograph. He said it helped him believe that even the impossible can be real for a moment. And honestly, I think he was right.